Can the justice system make a mistake in condemning an innocent person? What happens when a mysterious secret is revealed in the final moments of an execution? Join us at Classic Storytime Hub as we bring you Present at a Hanging by Ambrose Bierce, reimagined in English, with a tale full of suspense and intrigue until the very end.
Before we dive in, subscribe for your daily stories. Now, let's go.
In the remote stretches of Iowa near Lebanon, there lived an old man named Daniel Baker. His reputation was as weathered as the barn doors on his property, a man who'd spent years on the edge of town, keeping to himself. But rumors of a grim event spread like wildfire. Whispers that Daniel had murdered a traveling peddler who'd stayed the night under his roof. This wasn't just any time in history. It was 1853, when the roads were long and the dangers lurking in the wilderness were real. Peddlers, men with packs full of goods, would venture down forgotten trails, relying on the hospitality of strangers in small towns like this. They'd trade stories, sell trinkets, or make a little money along the way. But in this unforgiving world, not all strangers were friendly, and not all trades were clean. The peddlers crossed paths with everyone: the lonely farmer, the quiet widow, the reclusive hermit, people who had nothing to lose. Some were kind, others, well, some found a darker way to make ends meet. And the price of that darkness? Sometimes it was a man's life. It wasn't uncommon for a peddler to show up at a rough cabin with an empty pack and a bulging purse, and then simply disappear. And that's where Daniel Baker comes into the picture. No one knew for sure what had happened. All anyone could say was that a peddler had knocked on his door, and no one had seen him leave. 7 years had passed since the rumors about Daniel Baker, and the night air still carried the chill of the unknown. Reverend Mr. Cummings, a well-known Baptist minister in the area, was making his way home after visiting a nearby town. The moon hung low, peeking through a thin layer of mist that blanketed the earth, casting everything in an eerie silvery glow. Mr. Cummings, always cheerful, hummed a tune as he steered his horse along the narrow road. Every so often he'd speak a few kind words to the animal, his voice a steady murmur in the night. As he approached a small bridge crossing a dry ravine, something caught his eye. There, standing in the center of the bridge, was a lone figure. He could make out the silhouette of a man, his form sharp against the misty backdrop of the forest. The stranger was weighed down by a pack, a heavy stick in hand, no doubt another wandering peddler, but there was something unsettling about him. The way he stood there, motionless, staring out into the distance with the vacant gaze of someone lost in a dream, gave him an air of detached thoughtfulness, almost as if he were sleepwalking. Mr. Cummings, ever the friendly soul, slowed to horse as he neared the man. He tipped his hat and called out in his warm, inviting voice, "Good evening, sir. If you're heading in my direction, I'd be happy to give you a ride." The man didn't respond. His head lifted slightly, eyes locking with the minister's, but still there was no word, no movement, nothing. For a moment, the two stood in a strange silence, the air between them thick with tension. Mr. Cummings, undeterred by the odd behavior, called out again with a kind, persistent smile, "Come on now, don't be shy. Hop in. It's a long way to go, and it's not safe traveling these roads alone at night." Suddenly, the stranger's right hand shot out, pointing toward the ground in a sharp, deliberate motion. His finger directed toward the edge of the bridge, where nothing seemed to lie beyond. Mr. Cummings followed the gesture, glancing over the side into the ravine, but there was nothing. No sign of danger, no strange shapes in the shadows, just the emptiness of the ravine stretching away beneath him. Frowning, the minister turned back to address the man, But in that instant, the figure had vanished. It was as though he had dissolved into thin air. The horse, which had been unusually skittish throughout the encounter, let out a terrified snort and bolted, throwing the minister off guard. Before he could even grab the reins, the horse was galloping up the hill, racing faster than he could control. By the time Mr. Cummings managed to regain control, they were 100 yards past the bridge. Out of breath and shaken, he looked back, and there, standing again in the same place, the same posture, as if frozen in time, was the figure. His gaze locked onto the spot where the man had been before, the scene unchanged. It was then, as the wind picked up and the chill seeped into his bones, that Mr. Cummings felt it, a cold, creeping realization. Something unnatural was at play here. With a sense of urgency, he urged the horse into a full gallop, racing home as quickly as he could, the feeling of unease clinging to him like a second skin. At home, still shaken by the encounter, he recounted the strange experience to his family, but his restless mind couldn't settle. The next morning, as the first light of dawn cracked through the sky, he gathered 2 neighbors, John White Corwell and Abner Razor, and together they set out to return to the site. When they reached the bridge, a sight more chilling than any of them had anticipated awaited them. Hanging from one of the beams, swaying gently in the misty breeze, was the body of Daniel Baker. His lifeless form dangled by the neck, positioned directly beneath the place where the strange figure had stood only hours before. The floor of the bridge was covered with a thin layer of dust, dampened just slightly by the night's fog. But as Mr. Cummings and the others looked closely, they saw something that made their blood run cold. The only footprints visible in the dust were those of his horse, the very same path he had taken. The men carefully set to work, removing Baker's body from the beam. As they did, the earth beneath them shifted. Loose dirt slid away, revealing something buried just below the surface, a grim discovery that sent shivers through their spines. Human bones, weathered and scattered, had been partially unearthed by the relentless work of water and frost over the years. It didn't take long for the grim truth to surface. These were the remains of the missing peddler. A heavy silence fell over the group as they stood there, the reality of the situation sinking in. When the coroner's jury convened for the double inquest, the findings were stark. Daniel Baker, it was concluded, had taken his own life, his mind unraveling under the strain of temporary insanity. As for the peddler, Samuel Moritz, the jury could only surmise that he had been murdered, though the identity of his killer, or killers, remained a mystery, lost to time.
And thus the story ended. If you liked this journey into the worlds of classic literature, do not forget to support us by subscribing so we can tell you more. And hey, if there's a classic tale you'd love to hear told in this suspenseful style, drop its name in the comments below. Your suggestion might be our next chilling adventure.